allowing the body vehicle to be comfortable. And noticing any areas of discomfort. All is welcome in the moment, as it is, and allowing our awareness to expand out from the physical into the environment around, allowing a sensing of all that is in this moment. Sound, smell, perhaps sight if the eyes are open, or images on the mind screen if the eyes are closed. The sense of touch of the body against the seat. But beyond the senses and beyond this physical subject and object, let us tune in to the sense of being, the sense of alive presence that permeates all in this moment. It is the ground of being. It is absolutely all pervading, infinitely expanding that sense of aware presence. That flows through all objects and all subjects, but is not limited to anything. And beginning to gently come back first to the subtle as breath, sound, touch, fully embodying again the physical presence, physical vehicle, and the surrounding environment. But maintaining this sense of subtle awareness, the thread of that one presence, which is awareness, or the sense of being, or the sense of alive presence, this ground of being. That permeates all that is. And then as we localize into awareness of subjects and objects and come back to this manifest reality that we have agreed to be in and a part of, unfolding moment by moment. And just this, as it is, without needing to change anything, without needing to judge as right or wrong. But to allow all of this to be as it is, without any resistance. But with an openness, a childlike curiosity, and if we can maintain on some level this awareness of the aware sense of presence that's permeating everything, as well as this vehicle and the life that we have been gifted, then there is this beautiful, peaceful presence that arises moment to moment that allows us to really enjoy life as it is. All sense of struggle disappears in this surrendering, which is not a mind or a conscious surrendering, but simply a melting into the ground of being and an openness to the arising of life in each moment. Pain and struggle intensifies whenever we resist what is. And when that sense of struggle or resistance or irritation to the peaceful presence that permeates all things, whenever this irritation, this sense of resistance arises, we know that on some level we're resisting the flow the natural flow of the universe. And whenever this occurs, it's a beautiful pointing for us, directing us perhaps to some underlying subconscious or unconscious pattern attached to the story of life as it's been lived here. And in those pointings, which become more and more subtle, we can create greater freedom by simply seeing through them, recognizing, yes, I see there's a pattern there. I see you again. I release you. I see you, I meet you, I release you. And this can take years, or it can take moments. But then what is time? Time is something that has been created by the human mind and through perhaps the observation of the universe, of planets and the turning of the planets around the sun, to give us some sense of groundedness and history. But in the great scheme of things, time is irrelevant. There is only ever the eternal now. And we only are ever asked to be aware of this moment. And the pointing or directing of any irritation or resistance to presence, that's creating either tiny little currents of chaos or great big hurricanes of chaos in our life. And we simply are asked to recognize that, to drop it, to drop back into that underlying flow of peaceful presence again. And this is why we meet here, just to remind each other of these pointings that arise. And each of you will be noticing now the more subtle ones, and maybe the ones that you don't even want to speak out, but they're there. And when we see through those more subtle patterns, then a greater capacity to remain in this peaceful presence arises. Anyone is drawn to share, a pointing perhaps that's created greater clarity for you. And in our honouring of these pointings, it is so important that we always follow those inner directions, and wherever we feel that resistance, even if we feel, if the shoulds and the musts, and I really, ought to be, if you feel those coming up to try and justify, then just again notice that there's a little tornado around those too. There's a little bit of chaos around those as they create resistance. Okay. feel free to share. And just put your hand up like this and I'll unmute you if you like.
Kathy with her questions. But I really love that statement that you said a while ago. It gives me peace using it. When you talk about use the mind to jump over the mind. For a while I was thinking that we should be like the mind is almost an enemy when I was listening to some of our satsangs, but I have come to realise that it's not. It's a really beautiful part of us, and questioning is not necessarily a problem. It's, I guess, what we do with those questions. So my question tonight is just, I'd be interested, no big topic or anything, but your comments on free will versus destiny. Nothing big.
I love your challenge, Kathy. Free will and destiny. I can only share how what comes through here. I never claim to be the one that knows. We'll just see what comes through. Very interesting topic, and it's one that could be a very big discussion, obviously. There are many ways I could talk about this, but I've just done an interesting podcast with a wonderful astrologer, which I'll be working on and putting out for you all next week. And we talked about the astrology for 2020. Now, when you're born, if you're a little baby, your astrology is if you place that naked child on the earth and they looked up at the sky, it's where all those planets were placed at the moment of their birth. And there's influences of those celestial beings as planets. But they're only potentials. And I think this is something that's interesting. There is potential in each and every one of us. It's like there's a potential in a seed. If I take a seed of a plant, a seed of an orange tree, there's the potential that that seed could grow into a beautiful tree and blossom and fruit and share its fruit with the world. There's also the potential that that seed could land in a place that was dry or barren and the tree would never produce flowers or fruit. Or perhaps that seed would get washed into the ocean and rot away and never even sprout or grow. I think planted within each and every one of us, and the one thing that we share in the seed form of each and every human being, is a desire for happiness. Or I could use the word a desire for peace. Beyond all the other human desires and that may arise. And in that seeking for happiness or peace, that leads each human on quite a merry dance, doesn't it? And this is the Leela, you know, they talk about the Leela or the play and the playing out. And without having died and remembered my death and remembered a rebirth, I can't talk about reincarnation, because I only talk about things that I've either experienced or I feel I fully know. I haven't died, remembered my death, or remembered my rebirth. I've had hints of that, but then I don't know 100%. But I do believe that when that seed, that desire within each and every human for either peace or happiness, and I call them the same thing, but different words can be used. In the seeking to attain that, once there is an exhaustion of the material world, it seems that there is a natural turning inward to the inner world, or a seeking on a deeper level. And initially there is this attainment of happiness through the possession of things, a love affair, a child, but none of that is lasting, because it's all a part of the world of duality, and none of that is lasting. There seems to be this desire to possess. It is only when we come to the realization that I am not this body, I am not separate, I am not a separate being to all of this, and an ability to melt into the ground of being, or that sense of peaceful presence, or the Buddha mind, or, you know, the divine radio that's always playing. We can give it so many different words. It's only when we come to have that experience of being able to rest in that, but yet still play out our life, that we actually can rest in a peace that is an eternal peace, that a peace that is unchanging, always and ever present and available. And it is only when we slip back into an attachment of, as a separate body mind with an agenda, or with a pattern playing out, and the reactive personality trait or mental pattern that goes with that, that's when we fall back out of flow and into that state, which is the state of fluctuation, the state of chaos, whether that's just a little chaos or a lot of chaos. But it really, and I know I'm not exactly answering your question there, Kathy, but I do believe there is a seed planted within us, and some of us have worked through our patterns and have less, the veil is a little thinner in around certain individuals, and again, the individual is an illusion as well. So, but around certain body minds, the veil is thinner. There is a greater resting in that peaceful presence, or they are closer to that. There are less patterns running. So there is an experience of more stability, more peace. more relaxation. And that's something that is important, to be able to tune into this subtle realm of the grounded being, to the awareness of this aware place, state. We really need to have that deep sense of relaxation, because when there is a very active mind or an overactive nervous system or a lot of trauma, then it's very, very unresolved trauma, then it's very, very difficult to tune into that. Now, as of the question, is there a destiny? Yes, I do believe it is our destiny to rest there. And again, our destiny through whatever occurs is to peel back the layers to be able to rest in that state, which is not a state. Words will fail us here, Kathy. Because as soon as you try and describe it, anything I can describe is not it, is it? Yet, free will, do we have free will? Well, first of all, let's ask the question, am I thinking? Do I have thoughts? Or is there thinking? And, we've looked at this through the eyes of science, where they say thought arises and is seen in the brain and then cognized by the person, which means that it seems there is a field of thought, and then we tune into that. And I know very often when I'm speaking, because I don't plan what I'm going to say at any time, there seems to be a flow that is just flowing there. So that's a little different to, obviously, if you're giving a lecture about a particular subject, if it's an objective subject, then you need to have knowledge that's fixed around that. It's very different. Free will. We certainly seem to make choices, don't we? But do we? That's a very, very interesting question. It seems that we make choices. Yet, when we're at a particular, and again, there's no levels, but state of consciousness, there could be no other choice than the seeming choice that we make. For instance, you could just talk about a scenario where someone who has a lot of trauma, in that scenario, they may turn to aggressive, reactive behavior. Someone else who doesn't have that trauma may be able to stay steady and calm in the same situation. But it seems like free will. But our free will seems to be dictated by the patterns and the state of consciousness due to those patterns, or the lack of, at any given time. And, I'm using the word pattern. I could use the word samskara as well, which are, again, unresolved, deep patterns of the psyche. Our work really is clearing, seeing through, and ultimately simply being able to be with this, whatever it is, however it is, at any given time. And expressing you know, we'll still have a character, we'll still have preferences. There'll always be that here, because we have, in this world of duality, we have these separate bodies that have, and minds that have been through different experiences and grown up in different cultures, and there will be different preferences there, and that character will play out through those preferences. However, there will be greater openness, peace, a natural state of love and compassion, or a lack of, depending on what's playing through here. Well, back to you, Kathy.
So many thoughts. Thank you. Something that came to me was, I guess, if you are able to be present and have moved towards the internal, the non-dual, then things will just move for you, or you'll be moved to move with it. And I guess if you're in the external, even the moves you make for that seed, for that being, that's okay too. Or I guess in a way that's, speaking for myself, that's none of my business. That's each person's journey. Something that is also ticking in the back of my head, I've been thinking about Buddhist monks, for example, that will spend years just meditating on love for the world or peace for the world. So surely, well, maybe I've answered my own question, that if we are with the being, with the presence, then yes, our energy, the essence, the energy is working, flowing with the world. And love is definitely a good energy to be flowing within this world.
Well, first of all, I'd say that, remember, we've talked about, and I love this saying, and it's from a dear friend of ours that introduced this little saying that both Terry and I really like. Remember the great okayness, that actually everything's okay, that presence has no preference. This state of the ground of being, in that beautiful, peaceful present flow that we enter, there is no preference there. Yet the vibration is one of such deep peace that it is a vibration that is love and loving. So whenever we are dipping into that and that we've melted into that and we're tuning into that, which is always here and ever available, we don't have to go anywhere for that. We simply have to drop some of the barriers that keep us from that. We are then as well strengthening that flow, perhaps. I like to think that, you know. And there's a beautiful Buddhist practice where they do metta. And metta is a beautiful thing to do, where you can do whatever practice is yours, and at the end you just sit and offer, you know, in that state of love and peace for all beings, for all humanity and every living creature. And I think that's what you meant. You can even add that, do that yourself sometimes, you know, if that's something that sings to your heart. But there's no particular thing we have to do. There's no particular way things have to be. It's just this. And the practice of meditation, any form of meditation, it is wonderful in that it helps to relax, a deep inner relaxation. And in that relaxation of the human body mind, the relaxation of the nervous system here, there is a greater openness to this beautiful presence. And we can feel that, can't we? Because when we get really upset about something, or we have resistance, or, you know, inner chaos, relationship dynamics, whatever, whichever way that plays out, it is impossible to tune in to that beautiful ground of being when that is playing strongly in our nervous system. So, you know, being relaxed, and our meditation practice, for as long as you need it, or as little as you need it, or if you don't need it, that's okay too. The beautiful, beautiful thing is when we are ready, we will drop in. When there is enough openness and clarity and freedom here, then we tune into what's always and ever available here. Sarah, I'm just going to unmute you. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think that's what you're talking about. Meditation is a practice, and I that's really resonating with me at the moment in the situation I'm in, because I'm aware that it would be really easy to sit and meditate and do a practice in the moment that I'm in, and then move into another space that is, you know, that I'm totally reactive, and it's very you know, it's re-stimulating, particularly family patterns and things. And I'm conscious that what the practice can, it's so much more than a practice if I can carry that and breathe it into the moment when I'm experiencing the, you know, the extreme pain, the distress of others around, and how I am in that space is actually if I can, and I don't achieve it much of the time, but when I do achieve, you know, that it's like yeah, that's what the practice, it's only a practice. Okay, physically it might bring benefit health wise in that my, you know, I can achieve certain things, but actually in the broader sense, if we want to bring real peace to the world, to be able to be peace in those moments, it's like I honestly, I just feel like I can achieve it such a small fraction of the time, but I just glimpse the potential of that is huge. And yeah, I just wanted to say that that's kind of where I'm really trying to flow at the moment. And so this, your question, Kathy, and your discourse, Soraya, is just like, oh, it's so wonderful to be in this space and to have that. And thank you very much, both of you, for bringing this to my awareness, because it's kind of been hovering there. Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah, too, because you're absolutely right. The most powerful thing and gift that we can offer into any situation is to just hold that space without taking a point of view, taking a stand, but to hold it with you know, an openness, like an open flower, just holding, just as an open flower holds the sunlight, that we can just hold that light and that space and that spaciousness, because it offers a spaciousness. And yes, that is very challenging. And I actually, it reminds me, just listening to you talk, Sarah, of when my mother was dying a couple of years ago, and she died of bowel cancer. And she was really pissed off that she was dying before my dad. And the siblings, you know, we were all around, and the grandchildren, we were all holding that space for her and wanting to be there for her and to love her. And it was not easy for her at all. And it wasn't easy for each of us, as particularly there was a little bit of rivalry happening, as does around death. And I observed that, but there was also a couple of times where there was some not very nice things happening, and I just said, could you pull the car over, please? I'm going for a walk. And for me, that was just making that little statement of, I went for a beautiful walk and just tuned into the beauty, because it was in a beautiful part of the world, walking by the ocean. And they were having the family dynamics happening. And at that time, there was nothing useful I could add to that. So I simply went for a walk and tuned into the beauty. And that was a giving back to that situation. Even though I wasn't physically present, that was holding a whole different energy around compared to what the energy that was being, the dynamics that were playing out because of the grief, because of the discomfort with death and the lack of understanding and acceptance of death as really being a beautiful new birth and another wonderful experience of life, really. So yes, wonderful challenges for you at the moment, Sarah, and great opportunities to observe and to go deeper, and to share that with your siblings as well. That's incredible. So yeah, wonderful, really wonderful.
As you and Terry often say, like, more and more it's becoming aware to me. Thank you for this group. That it's all so simple, and it's all so available. It's just ever present, and that love, that peace, that joy, it's just there. And I guess when you talk about the seed, Soraya, I was suddenly thinking of, you know, well, if we're in that moment with the essence, that's when we can burst forth with a flower here or a flower there, or but even if we're not bursting forth at the time, it's or I guess it's just life. It's going on. Like, there might be a few dead seeds that drop off, or well, that's okay too. Or there might be another flower at another point in time, and that's, you know, it's all okay. Yeah.
Great okayness. And you know, sometimes that is being okay with pain too. And you know, we're all getting older, and we will be faced with pain in the physical body, and perhaps in the emotional body. We're most tested when those whom we love the most are suffering as well. And ultimately, it's being okay with that too. And in that okayness, and even in that, in the ground of being, and when we are in touch with that, you know, this beautiful presence that's ever available, sometimes even in that, it doesn't mean it will be peaceful, but it doesn't mean it's pain-free. So just to be aware of that too, that all is welcome in that space. There is no resistance to what is as it is. I think that's really important, that we realize it's not like a fairyland where, you know, all the difficulties are taken away. It really is, all is welcome here as it is. Oh my gosh, we better pass over to Terry. I just looked at the time. Okay, Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. There's some wonderful opportunities going around at the moment, triggers to help us to look at things that we don't like to look at normally. Somebody, actually my goddaughter, sent me a link to a video. It was an American lady who'd been planning this trip for years, and she'd packed her bags and come over to Australia, and was having a wonderful time. She was in an Airbnb in the Blue Mountains and planning to stay away for years, and, you know, really enjoying everything. And this was in March. And we all know what started to happen in March. She started to get all these sort of whispers of strange things happening in China and Italy and all that. And she was watching the news, and everybody was being advised to go home. And she was saying, no, I don't want to go home. I'm traveling. I'm on the road, you know, with my suitcase and having a lovely time. Anyway, she suddenly got in touch with this enormous fear, and it came into her body as a kind of panic. And she ordered a taxi and went to Sydney airport and went to the Qantas desk and said they could put me on the first flight to anywhere, any city in America. And then she went to sit down and wait for the flight. This panic was growing and growing. And then I was thinking, well, this is great. Wow, what a wonderful thing to happen. You know, that she's being put in touch with this wonderful underlying fear that has been obviously sitting there. And then she remembered her spiritual practices that she hadn't been doing, and she found a nice quiet corner, and very quickly she managed to suppress this enormous feeling that was taking her over. And I thought, well, what a shame. We're talking about meditation earlier, and meditation, for any reason, is a technique that's trying to achieve something. It's not meditation. Meditation is the complete presence with whatever is in the moment, which means you can take that off the cushion into action. It's a life, it's a living fully situation, and in a sense that probably I would say the highest spiritual practice, because with no resistance to anything, you're fully experiencing all the feelings as they occur, as they come up. Otherwise, you're going to get the residual incomplete experience coming up out of the blue. You don't know where it came from, and you're going to be run by all these patterns that create chaos in your life. So what we want to get to is a point where we are fully burning up as we go, so that there's no residual stuff left behind. And I meditated almost every day for nearly 30 years on cushions all over the world. And this peace that I was achieving was something that had to have a cushion, you see. It had to have a cushion. And when I discovered that it didn't need a cushion anymore, but it also contained some really uncomfortable stuff. Because at the other side of that fear, if she could have stayed with it, is the peace. The peace is at the other side of the fear, not through some wonderful spiritual practice that suppresses that and puts it back into the undercurrents that are running you in resisting what's happening. So I just thought I'd say that. Let's go into the fear and find the peace at the other side. Yeah, because all feelings are just physical sensations. We experience everything through physical sensations. And those can get pretty intense, so long as there are reasons for them, because we are constantly trying to find solutions to stop these feelings or to control these feelings. But if we just relax into the physical sensations of feelings, then there's nothing to be afraid of, because we are actually feeling the feelings and not resisting the feelings. Okay.
Thank you, Terry. And again, it's can we be with this? Can we be with the feelings? Can we be with the sensations? Can we be with this as it is, without needing or trying to make it different? Ultimately, that is, if you want to use that word, the greatest living meditation. And to be able to not push the feelings away, but to notice them, because they're always pointing and directing us toward generally a deep fear or a deep-seated resistance, which ultimately can just dissipate. It's quite fascinating how that can happen. And then later we may wonder, what was that all about? Sometimes it's relating back to a trauma and it just simply needs to be released. And there's a physiological aspect to it where the polyvagal nerve is stimulated, and we're having that fight, flight, or freeze response. But all of this can be, if we allow it and just relax into it and go deeper and go deeper and go deeper and go deeper in a safe space, and just allow it to melt. And for some people who obviously have very complex and deep trauma, that that they may need help to be able to achieve that. But everyone in this room here now you wouldn't be in this room if you weren't ready to melt away, to just simply allow that melting into peaceful presence as it is in each moment, because that's all there is. So that brings us to the end of another satsang, and wishing you all so much love, and well done, Sarah, for holding that beautiful space, and what a blessing, what an opportunity for you. And Colette, I did want to hear a little bit about your homeland, if that's okay. You've been revisiting somewhere special, I believe, haven't you, just before we finish?
Yeah, I've been to the west of Ireland. I've been to Patrick, which is a very sacred mountain. I mean, for a very long time, very pre-Christian people have been going there. And it's where my grandmother came from, and her people. And it's full of history and letting go and including for me. She left under very difficult circumstances, and never returned. But her family are still there. I mean, members of her family are still there. So there's a lot of inclusion, exclusion, and then inclusion to happen now. So I just take a moment to tell you that I stopped on the street and I asked a total random stranger who was walking past if she knew where the graveyard was. And she told me, and then I asked her if she knew where a particular house was. And she knew the whole of the family, and she knew the story, and it was an extraordinary encounter, really. And it just happened by divine providence. There's no question about it. I mean, just like that. And so she's. It's taken me to. Prior to meeting her, I was staying at the edge of the mountain. It's a very sacred place, so there was a lot happening before I met her. And now I feel I'm in a very a deep process of including everything, and inhabiting that. And there's a lot coming with it. So I'm feeling presently a lot of vulnerability, a lot of not knowing, and a lot of just agreeing. So it's quite an extraordinary time for me just now.
How wonderful. And that, yes, sometimes I feel like certain situations present themselves to use a terminology that I understand, is to clear karma. That's what, when, as you were speaking, it was like clearing karma, clearing the way from past patterning there. How wonderful. And not knowing, I mean, oh, how wonderful. Yes, when we reach that point where we just go, I don't know, it's very special and very beautiful and very powerful, and the vulnerability that comes with that, I feel that for you. So yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm sure it's all perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, so much love for each and every one of you. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.